Hello, I'm Pedro Mora with Pacific Media, featuring today an interview we had in July with MLA John Horgan. We talked about social issues listed on the unofficial referendum website called nowpolling.ca. When comparing polls results with some of the government's rules, you will notice that the politicians' agendas are not always in tune with the wishes of the majority of citizens. And that's why we need to stop giving away our decision-making power on election days. We, the voters, must demand during elections from our political candidates that our vote is conditional to having the right and the ability to participate on all relevant government decisions. We can do this through initiative, recall, and referendum. That means shifting the political power from representative democracy and to direct democracy. How do we start this revolutionary change of democracy? Very simple. You can now add your initiative or opinion on nowpolling.ca so it can be counted. The results of this poll will become the tool to pressure politicians for that social change, for that political change which most of us want. Here is John Horgan.
So would you like to see what we have in our nowpolling.ca and see if you agree with some of those
Sure.
answers? And if you don't, maybe you can tell us what would be your choice.
Sure.
And you want to go there to provincial polls? You click on provincial polls.
Okay.
Okay, natural resources. Let's go into mining methods. You see in the middle,
Yeah.
mining methods. Now, the title, the topic is mining methods, and people go and put what they think about it. So it's been posted, requires strict observation of environment regulations for mining businesses.
Yeah.
And apparently most people like that. Now, there is another one that says ban the extraction of all polluting materials on one extreme, and the other says don't interfere with businesses, they create employment. Do you like one of those topics, or you would make a different one?
Well, I would instinctively support the first position, which is to require a strict observation of environmental regulations. But the challenge with minerals and metal extraction is that there is, although it's a small footprint, it's an intense footprint. And you've got challenges with First Nations in most distant areas where mining activity takes place. So I would add to the environmental challenges that mineral exploration and extraction faces the need to address treaty and First Nations rights on the land base. These are vexing challenges for business and industry, because the Supreme Court has said it's the Crown's responsibility to consult and accommodate, and the Crown, in the case of Mr. Campbell, has deferred that to industry and said, you go cut a deal with a First Nation and then come back and we'll straighten things out. Okay. Wrong way to go. There needs to be a series of regulations and policies in place to ensure that First Nations rights are met and maintained. And on top of that, you've got the environmental concerns as well. So I would add another layer to the requirements and regulations for industry to explore and extract minerals and metals from BC.
To consult with
First Nations, yeah, but not just consult, accommodate as well, and then that is a Supreme Court ruling dictates that it's not a nice, wouldn't it be nice if, or an add-on. It's a fundamental requirement, and industry is crippled because there are no guidelines in how they're supposed to engage, and the province should be leading that.
Would that also apply to towns that don't want, for instance, run-of-the-river plant? Not necessarily natives, but just ordinary folks that live in Squamish or somewhere, yes, and say, we don't want it. Should there be a law that says the provincial government must respect their opinion.
Well, interestingly, there were rules and requirements in place for municipal consent to that type of land use. I mean, one of the very few things that municipalities have control over is land use planning. And in 2005, 2006, Squamish, the issue that the example you use, said no to a run-of-river project on the Ashley River. And the response from the government wasn't to acknowledge the self-determination of this community to decide what happens on the land base. Instead, they brought forward a bill called Bill 30. It was a miscellaneous amendment, so there was only a couple of changes. But it exempted run-of-river projects from municipal oversight. So rather than doing the right thing and shaping decisions about how we expand what our industrial base is based on inputs from the people who will be affected by it, the government said, well, you know what, too bad. We believe that this activity is appropriate. We believe that we are the best place to make those decisions, not you, local communities. And that was wrong. We voted against it. The former minister, now former Blair Luxton, voted against it as well.
Okay, so we, the government, know better than people, so leave it to us.
The government in Victoria, distant from where all of this activity takes place. Most run-of-river projects, I don't quarrel with the technology if they're appropriately sited and there is a long-term plan as to how these small projects, some of them not so small, will actually fit into BC Hydro's needs, not just to meet domestic supply, but also how are we going to plan for conservation, how are we going to plan for the energy needs of the electricity needs of the future. Hydro's not in a position to do that if the government says you need to sign up all of these private contracts with private companies who've been given long-term leases on our rivers and streams. And it's just a fundamentally wrong-headed policy.
So the requires strict observation of environmental regulations by mining business. You would add native and local,
absolutely,
and local population.
Absolutely. In my view, if a community is going to embrace an industrial activity, if it has a negative footprint, and mining is one that, although the imprint on the land base is small, it's very intense, as I said at the start. And there's a project in the Williams Lake area, the Prosperity Mine by a company called Taseco, that is going to use a lake as a tailing pond. They're going to take poisonous, noxious substances from byproducts of their industrial activity and kill a lake. And the provincial government has said that's okay. The First Nations say that's not okay, and many in the community say, are you crazy? Tailing ponds are important and essential to mining. You need to be able to neutralize the extracts and the negative consequences. But most mines create a location, they deposit their tailings, they cover it with water because that renders it inert. But to use a natural lake, it's already been turned down in the case of Kemess North, but it's been approved by the province, not yet by the federal government, but approved by the province in Williams Lake. And the First Nations there are rightly outraged, as are many local residents. Okay,
so if you were in power, you would request a referendum for people to have their opinion and respect it.
I would think if we were in power, we would put in place environmental assessment regulations that were actually rigid and were designed to say no at some point if the project was inappropriate. The current environmental assessment process doesn't really have a no answer. It has a, provided you do this, 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 and this, you can proceed. And another example in the gas side is there's a plant called the Cabin Gas Plant in northeastern BC. Encana owns this facility. They're building it. It's going to increase our greenhouse gas emissions overall in BC by 3%, this one plant. Now, the environmental assessment permit says that it must be carbon capture ready. So they have to construct the facility as if they were going to capture carbon and then store it in the ground sometime in the future.
Yeah, I've heard about it. Yeah.
If you are concerned about the environmental pollution from mining and industry, one practical action you can take is to let your opinion be added to nowpolling.ca, where others can see it and your choice can be counted. Nowpolling.ca is here to register it, publish it, and count it. That way, we can all be clear about our collective will, and therefore politicians will be required to comply with it.
So let's go to the next next question here. If you want to go to, you see on top this return path. Go back to provincial polls. Oh, okay. Oh. Provincial polls again, and then let's go to natural resources again. Yeah. And then instead of mining metals, let's go to oil and natural gas.
Sure.
And you'll see his private ownership. I would say operations allowed under strict environmental regulations, and if at least 50% of profits are paid to the BC government. Do you think there's something wrong with that statement, or would you change it somehow, or you choose another one?
I don't understand the statement.
Okay.
Subsurface rights holders, that's a challenge for mining, for oil and gas. Most people assume when they buy property in British Columbia that they own above the ground and below the ground. And they don't. They own the surface rights to that property.
So they have the right to operate extraction of...
No, they must purchase those rights from the Crown. The Crown owns all of the subsurface rights. And industry or individuals, whether there be small mining operations, whether it be large oil and gas companies, have to purchase the subsurface rights from the Crown, and they pay a fee for that.
Okay.
And then they can exploit that resource and pay back a royalty to the Crown of a certain percentage, depending on what the market will bear. So I don't.
The suggestion here is that to pay at least 50% of the profits.
Yeah.
What is the profit that oil companies?
It varies. It varies.
It varies.
Yeah, and
according to profits?
well, it varies according to the commodity value for natural. We don't have a lot of oil in BC. We have a lot of natural gas.
Okay.
And there is a floating royalty rate on that is competitive with Alberta, so that we can encourage industry to come here and extract that resource. But we're not getting anywhere near 50% of the value of that commodity. And how we would do that is a mystery to me, because we have to balance. Alberta is the baseline. Okay. The industry's the oldest there, and we have to make sure that we can encourage those people to come and extract the resource.
And years past, you see internationally, if you go to Iraq, Iran, there have been revolutions over the fight for oil.
Yes.
And governments have come up and say, hey, we want the whole thing. We want to own and operate it. We don't want foreign companies
I'm
here.
thinking of Venezuela right now, for example.
Venezuela, the same thing. He privatized the oil company. They didn't say we're going to compare ourselves with France or with other countries. They say, we want it.
This is our resource.
Right.
Yeah.
So what would persuade you to say, we want more, if you don't think that we're getting enough? I don't know what the percentage is, but if you think that the corporations that are profiting from it are getting way too much in comparison to what the people of British Columbia are getting, would you be willing to have a struggle with them?
Well, there's a couple of historical points that we need to look at. The establishment of Petro-Canada back in the 70s, the privatization of BC Gas, which used to be part of BC Hydro. It's now Terracin Gas, but it was part of BC Hydro. And and Bill Vanderzam, interestingly enough, a name from the past who's now a name from the present, hopefully not a name from the future, he privatized that portion of BC Hydro. Very profitable at that time, and we had a modest amount of oil and gas activity at that time. We have absolutely taken off since the mid-1990s in that sector, and the vast majority of the profits, as you say, have gone to offshore companies, not to British Columbia.
So what's happening now with all the gas companies that are extracting gas? Are we getting, do you think we're getting our fair share?
I don't personally believe we're getting our fair share. What the balance is would be subject to negotiation.